My husband had an affair with a woman who was a high-level executive at a tech company for at least a year. I found out in January of 2022 and he broke it off with her and we started couples therapy. He made it clear that he wanted our marriage to work. Last night, he told me that a few months before he broke up with her, she unalived herself. He said that she kept reaching out to him for months after he broke up with her, through her friends and through different phone numbers that he kept blocking. He says she attempted unaliving herself at least twice in that time. I guess he tried to help, but it didn't work. Her ex called him in May of last year to say that she had taken her own life and that she left instructions that he was to read to my husband the suicide note. Husband was featured very prominently in it, though the main reason she cited was the toxic work environment. No one would tell him when the funeral was because the note said that she didn't want him to know. He said lawyers called after that and told him that she left him $5 million, which he turned down, so it went to charity instead. He said friends of her kept calling, months later, to try to get him to contest the will, though I don't understand why they would care. In any case, my husband tells me all of this just last night, months after the fact, and I try to comfort him because this has to be devastating. But here's the thing, she's still active on LinkedIn, and I don't think it's just a bot. She gave a detailed recommendation for someone like 2 weeks ago and received one in return talking in detail about her work for over the last year. Multiple posts in the last month alone, even from other people, talking about meetings they had with her. That's the only social media she ever had, so there's nothing else for me to check. I don't know if he lied to me or if she lied to him, but either way, I'm losing my freaking mind over here. Is she alive? Is she not? Is it even any of my business? Do I try to track down the death certificate? Call her office and see if she still works there? And if she is alive, what then? Is that better? Do I tell my husband or do I take the secret to my grave? I don't actually want her to be dead. It would mean that she put together an incredibly elaborate scheme and got multiple people in on it, all to convince him that she unalived herself, but that he was only partially responsible. It makes no sense. It makes me feel crazy like how I felt during his affair, before I finally had enough proof that he couldn't possibly deny it. I knew something was wrong, but he swore I was just paranoid. Months of lies like that work their way into your brain. You question everything you think because you can't tell what's real anymore. This just brings all of those feelings right back to the surface. And on top of that, I feel so selfish for even questioning it. A woman died. What's wrong with me that I would even consider the possibility of some giant conspiracy like this? I just want this to stop. I want to go back in time and unknow all of this. Maybe I should just leave it be. But I feel like if I could just be certain of the truth, whatever the truth is, then all these feelings would stop. I can't talk to anyone about it because none of my friends even know about the affair. And because let's be real, I'm a horrible person for even thinking this might be true.
Am I the asshole for dropping out as my brother's best man days before his wedding? My 36 brother, 30, got married this past weekend and I was supposed to be his best man. The wedding was 12 plus because they didn't want to deal with toddlers, which is fair. Many people did have young kids, so they decided to have a venue nearby with a professional sitter if parents wanted to drop their kids there. My wife has injuries that make her slow to respond or understand what other people are saying. She also needs help with her food, but she's a very capable woman. Well, at the rehearsal dinner, sister-in-law said that if my wife had any food preferences, they would order extra food for her at the second venue, the one with the babysitter. Am I the asshole for dropping out as my brother's best man days before his wedding? I was extremely confused and said we already gave our meal choices, but she said my wife would be better suited at the second venue. I remember just kind of staring at her. She said it's not like they're just looking out for my wife and I don't have to feed her or anything and can have fun at the wedding. My brother came over and I told him I've literally never heard anything like that and they think my wife is a child. Brother said it's for the best and I can go over and check on her. I said if this is how they want to treat my wife, I have no desire to be part of their shit show and dropped out as a best man. And no, I didn't go either.
I hired an escort for my brother with Down syndrome last month. I don't regret it and he still smiles about it. I'm 30 and my little brother is 24. He's honestly the best brother I could have asked for. I still remember the day he was born and holding my newborn baby brother when I was a kid. As we grew up, I always knew he was different, but he's my brother and I love him and I wouldn't change him. He's honestly one of my best friends and having a brother with Down syndrome, especially one like him, has made me a better person. Last month, my parents went out of town for a few days and they asked if I'd stay with my brother and take care of the house. While he might have Down syndrome, he's not entirely helpless. He just can't really be on his own like that. So of course I agreed and brought my PS5 over and some games, snacks, and beer, and I called out of work for a few days and figured we'd have some fun just like when we were kids. We were having a great time and were talking their first day while taking turns playing Elden Ring, and my brother started the game and got to the part where the guy calls you maidenless. And I said something like, "Ooh, he called you maidenless, bro? Damn." And my brother got super sad looking and I asked him what was wrong and he said, "I am maidenless. I'll never have a girlfriend." So we talked about that for a bit and he was actually feeling super depressed because he's never had a girlfriend and didn't think he ever would. We kind of talked it out and he was really sad and I decided, fuck it, we can find him a girl. I called a couple of people I knew who were into that sort of thing to see if they knew anyone. "You have people on your what?" Well, one of my buddies had a number of this girl, so I gave her a call. She was actually super sweet and understanding about the situation, and she said she'd be glad to show my brother a good time for her usual rate. She had a cousin with Down syndrome, so she was very sympathetic. I told my brother I'd paid a girl to come over and show him some fun on the condition that our parents will die without knowing I hired a prostitute to come to their house. He agreed. So I made plans for her to come over, got my brother shaved, and showered for his date. She showed up dressed up super nice, and she was also super hot. I'm no chef, but I had picked up some food from Olive Garden for them. She was a genuinely nice person and was really good with him, and I just left them to do their thing while I played the PlayStation in the living room. Eventually, they passed by, going upstairs to his room. I put my headphones on and kept playing. Eventually, they came back down and both had big smiles on their faces. She hung out with us a bit, then it was time for her to go. I handed her the cash plus some extra as a bonus. She said my brother was a sweetheart and that I was a good brother to do something like that for him and that she had a good time. She handed me back half the cash. Eventually, my parents came back and thankfully are none the wiser, as my mother especially would probably kill me. My brother is super appreciative and said it was the most fun he'd ever had. I have no regrets.
My husband demands I show him my coochie so that he can check me for STDs every single week. Disclaimer is not my Storytime is sending me on Instagram. Okay, my husband and I have been married for 2 years. Here's a little background info. My husband is like a 6 at best. I'm like a 10. Everywhere we go, I get male attention. I'm always getting looked at or stared at, no matter what I'm wearing, okay? I could be wearing a sweatsuit and people still notice me. My husband claims to never get jealous, but every time I get male attention, he starts saying things like, "Oh, you look too pretty today." Every now and then he starts complaining about my jewelry or my makeup. A little more background info. When we first got married 2 years ago, we decided to have an open relationship. This was mostly for me because I wasn't as attracted to him as I wanted to be, so sexy time was kind of boring. I would have to literally picture other people in my mind in order to feel anything. And he knew all of this. I actually told him that I wasn't as attracted to him as I wanted to be. After a year, he didn't want to have the open relationship, so I agreed. But then this made him get jealous. Part 2 is up. My husband demands I show him my coochie so that he can check me for STDs every single week. Disclaimer is not my Storytime, I'm sending me on Instagram. After he told me that he didn't want the open relationship anymore, I agreed. But then this made him become extremely jealous and toxic. Every single Saturday, I had brunch with my friends, my girlfriends. This meant no men allowed. After we stopped the open relationship, he started asking me if he could come with me to brunch. And of course, I'd be like, no. Then he started insisting on going everywhere with me. He became more controlling about the way that I dressed. Even if I wore a little bit too much perfume, he would start saying things like, "Girl, you're trying to get attention. You need to stop trying so hard." This obviously became a huge problem for us. And this was like 2 weeks after we stopped the open relationship. When I confronted him about it, he told me that he didn't trust me, that I was too good looking, and that men were still trying to get with me. I told him that as long as he wasn't comfortable with the open relationship, that I would never want to do that again. Then he started asking me if I thought about other men. The worst part is he started checking all the messages I sent the guys that I was hooking up with when we were having an open relationship with. This made him even more insecure, because these guys were really good looking and my husband just isn't. Part 3 is up. My husband demands I show him my coochie so that he can check me for STDs. Disclaimer, this is not my Storytime, it was sending me on Instagram. His insecurity kept growing day by day. One day I come home from hanging out with my girlfriends and he says, "Pull your panties down." I thought he was just trying to like hook up with me, so I did it. He then spreads my legs, grabs his flashlight, and starts checking me. Not just on the outside, literally putting his fingers inside and checking. He even tasted and smelled his fingers. Then he took a picture and notes. I asked him why he was doing that and he said, "I'm gonna start checking you every single week." Then he said, "Put your underwear back on." I felt extremely violated. Then I told him to never touch me like that again. Then he said, "I'll take your credit card away if you don't behave." I was shooketh. Like I said in part 1, I'm treated like a queen. He's always paid for everything and we live in a really beautiful house. I'm not about to lose that kind of life. Since then, he's been checking me once a week. So I decided to start cheating. I'm not gonna let him get away with that. And I'm not gonna get an STD because I'm not stupid. And guess what? My husband barely touches me. He could have just left us having an open relationship and none of this would have happened. I don't want to live like this and I don't want to get a divorce. How can I convince him to have an open relationship again? What should I do? Am I the asshole for moving to a hotel because my wife's family insisted I sleep on the couch? My wife and I got married last summer and her family lives across the country from us. So I'd actually never visited, but I did meet them a handful of times and we've always gotten along fine. They invited us to come and stay with them for a few days and we took up on the offer. We flew in yesterday and everything went well. Her dad and I watched football and I caught up with her mom and sisters and then we had a nice dinner. But then they let us know they don't want us sharing a bed while in their home and they wanted me to sleep on the couch. I thought they were joking, but they insisted. I had a problem with the implication that I shouldn't be allowed to sleep next to my wife. Am I the asshole for moving to a hotel because my wife's family insisted I sleep on the couch? I also have a bad back and the couch did not look the least bit comfortable. After arguing back and forth, I decided to leave and book a hotel. I did tell my wife she did not have to come and she chose to stay, and I said I'd come back the next day. The next morning, I called my wife asking when I should come by, and she said her parents want me to apologize. I said I'd do it to keep the peace, but they need to acknowledge it wasn't appropriate to insist I can't share a bed with my own wife. She told me that not only will they not apologize for it, now they're insisting I come back and stay on the couch for the rest of the visit. And if I don't agree, I'm not welcome back.
My sister thinks I'm being selfish because I'm not putting my own health at risk to give her baby. So just over 4 months ago, I gave birth to my 4th and last child. It was a high-risk pregnancy and the birth was very difficult. I won't go into detail as it is still hard for me to think about, but me and the baby are both fine. My doctors advised me that it would be best not to have any more kids, and I agreed. My husband just recently had a vasectomy and is now recovering. My sister and her boyfriend have tried planning for a family for a while, but recently found out she can't conceive. She's been very upset about this, and I do feel sorry for her. Our family mentioned adoption or surrogacy for them, and even though my sister's boyfriend was on board, my sister said she needed time to think. Well, a couple of nights ago, my sister called me to tell me her and her boyfriend had agreed on surrogacy. We talked for a bit, and after a while, she brought up the fact how I had done so well in all of my pregnancy and how I must have loved being pregnant. I knew exactly where this was going, and I reminded her how my last pregnancy went. Yet she told me everything was fine now, so what was my issue? I told her that even though I'm around now, I won't put myself through that again, and just because I'm fine now doesn't mean everything will be fine the next time. She then straight up asked me if I will not be her surrogate, and I told her no, I will not. She then started screaming into the phone about how selfish I am and how I need to look out for my sister and help her when she needed it. I told her I would help her with anything else, but I was not putting my own health at risk and potentially leaving my kids without a mom and my husband a widow. My sister went on to continually scream about how selfish I was being and how much of a bitch I was. I hung up on her and I didn't think about it and went to bed. The next morning, my phone was blown up with Facebook messages and calls from friends and family. My sister had gone on Facebook to rant about me. She went on about how I wouldn't let her be a mom and how I had 4 kids of my own. She said I was a selfish sister for not giving her a baby. My mom and a small handful of people are extremely angry at me and call me all sorts of names for being selfish, while my dad, brothers, and several other people are taking my side. I should not have to put my own health at risk for her, and I don't think I'm being selfish at all, but I'm not sure how to fix this.